Hey everybody, this is Bill. Welcome to our channel. Today we're talking college football. We're going to present our weekly top 25. This is for week 5. We're going to look at whoever fell out of last week's top 25, and we're going to take a look at some teams that are looking to get in to the top 25. Before we do that, we're going to talk about 3 teams that I have identified that have really been a disappointment to me as we kicked off this year. And we're going to look at some other chicanery that we saw in the Florida-Kentucky game that was concerning. And just going to cover everything. So let's get going. This week, top 25 for week 5. Okay, before we get going looking at the top 25 for week 5, here are 3 teams that I've been disappointed in so far in 2023. First, we got Illinois. Now, I know they took a lot of losses after a really decent year last year, but they had 2 stellar defensive tackles up front. We know Brett Bielema knows how to coach the offensive line, and they had Luke Altmaier, a stellar quarterback coming over from Ole Miss under tutelage of Lane Kiffin to do the quarterback, and Illinois has just not played well at all. Very disappointing. Texas Tech, we thought they were a sleeper over there in the Big 12. They brought back about 19 starters off a team that scared the heck out of everybody last year and beat Oklahoma on the way out. But their starting quarterback last year, he didn't hardly even play, and he was coming back. Well, they got beat by Wyoming at Wyoming. That's a tough place to play. They did have a slug out that they lost with Oregon, and then the quarterback has gotten hurt, and they just have not had the season we projected for Texas Tech. So that's very disappointing. The next team I want to highlight is the Pitt Panthers. Now, every time I hear a coaching vacancy of any kind come up, I got Pat Narduzzi's name on it. I see him being talked to. Pitt, they did win the ACC. I got to give them credit for that. And they've been a good football team over the years, but I don't know what they're doing this year. It hasn't worked out very well. They've lost a bunch of games they're not supposed to be losing to. Pitt, many people, I think some people had them. I think Phil Steele had them like 26 or 24. They don't even have a winning record right now. So very concerned about what's going on at Pitt. They had brought Phil Jurkovec, who's from Pittsburgh, but had been playing at Boston College. The guy's got a big arm. He's done well in the past. He's been injury prone. He's come over to Pitt. They're just not getting it done. The Panthers, one of my big disappointments, along with Texas Tech and Illinois, as we get well into the 2023 season. Now, we saw some highlights from a tweet that we really were concerned about. Now, as a FSU supporter, the backpack coming out some years ago I found just horrific. Very concerned by that situation. And now it looks like the University of Florida's trying to copy it. They've got some kind of cane. If you were to watch this video on social media, I can't put the video out here on YouTube, but you can go search it up. They have an assistant coach. He comes waddling down with a cane to hand a stellar wideout Ricky Pearsall, who grabs the cane and starts doing some dancing after a touchdown. Florida's getting killed 30-14 out here, and these people are dancing around with a cane. Oh my gosh, man, I played football. You bring me that cane, I'm going to punch you in the face. We're out here about winning football games. We're getting our asses kicked by Kentucky. You're bringing me some cane to dance around with. That's just like FSU. Hey, we got a turn. It's 38-7. We're getting killed, but we got a turnover. Let's get this pink backpack we got from Bloomingdale's and stand around on the sideline looking good. This is ridiculous. What kind of nonsense is going on in college football? I thought we put that to bed with that backpack, but here come the Florida Gators. They're always going to top the Seminoles and everything that they try to do, or so they think, and they may be doing it this time with this cane over that ridiculous, god-awful backpack we saw some years ago. Just my thoughts. Now, speaking of the Florida Gators, they were the only team that fell out of our top 25 from last week. There's some mixing up that went on in there, but they were the only team that has now exited the top 25. That, at the hands of their shellacking they took up at Kentucky, physically whipped out of the game, never close. Florida. They're out. They're not even looking at the next group of people trying to get in. And that group includes Texas A&M, who is at Alabama this week. Now, Texas A&M's only loss was to Miami. Their quarterback, he is out for the season. But Max Johnson, he's the son of former Tampa Bay Buccaneer quarterback Brad Johnson. He's in, came over from LSU. He's in Texas A&M. Big opportunity hosting Alabama to beat the Crimson Tide. I don't think they can do it, but maybe they can. And if they can, they're going to be in good shape in the SEC, because their loss to Miami, of course, is out of conference. Kansas State is a good football team, so's Tulane. We got our eye on Maryland. They got Tagovailoa over there, Tua's little brother, and they're looking good. They're at Ohio State this week. That's going to be an interesting game. I want to see what the Terps got. They're looking pretty good so far. Wisconsin is hanging around, of course. Louisville. They've got the new coach that came over from, their coach left to go to Cincinnati. Excuse me. They've got Jeff Brom, who came over from Purdue. He's a favorite son there at Louisville, former quarterback. He's got the Cardinals rolling, and I'm interested to see what they're doing. Arkansas and BYU are in there. Fresno State remains undefeated. Air Force is looking good. Now, Colorado, of course, they got bombed by Oregon, but they were getting bombed by Southern Cal and Caleb Williams, but Southern Cal forgot to finish the game, and Colorado came back and won it. So Colorado's better. I got to hand it to them. Iowa. Now, they've lost their starting quarterback, Cade McNamara, who came over from Michigan to give them some chance at some kind of life offensively. He is out for the season, just a devastating injury. So sorry to see that. But Iowa's going to have even worse offensive woes than they had. They're out of the top 25. They're looking to get in it. I don't think they're going to make it. Wyoming, we talked about them. We have talked about them. They, of course, upset Texas Tech. They played Texas very tough, too. Wyoming, that's a very good football team. West Virginia, how about that? How about that? West Virginia, the Mountaineers, they're really looking good. You got to hand it to them. They're playing with some grit out there. They must like Neil Brown, the coach, because he's trying to save his job. And they're looking good. The Mountaineers, their schedule sets up, they could potentially finish 9-3. We're watching them. Now, Kansas, they lost to Texas hard this week, but their quarterback had some issues, couldn't go full. So that's kind of out of there. We got Colorado again. We have a misprint here. We got them in there twice, but that's okay. Hey, Florida, they're still trying to get in. And Syracuse had an opportunity to beat Clemson in the Dome. Clemson was going to have none of it. Clemson is done messing around out here, and their quarterback is starting to look good. They're a very physical football team. Clemson could potentially run it the rest of the way. The Tigers made a statement this past weekend. So there you have it. That's who's out, the Florida Gators, and that's who's looking to get in. We got our eye on A&M with Alabama this week, and we're also looking at a couple teams that are sneaking up on us. Louisville, Maryland, and let's go ahead and say it, West by God, Virginia. All right, folks, now before we move off to this week's top 25, I want to invite you to follow us over on Facebook at the Color and Pageantry. We're not a big site. We don't have a lot of bells and whistles going on over there, but we do post some information that you may find useful or really appreciate. Love to have you join us over there and comment with us. So find us at the Color and Pageantry on Facebook. Now let's get into the top 25. We'll start with team number 25. At 25, we have LSU. Now, they had a brutal loss at Ole Miss this weekend. People are kind of wondering about Brian Kelly now because LSU had a veteran team coming back. They did have some holes, but man, they've got NFL talent all over the place. FSU in the opener was a tough one, there's no question, but they barely got by Arkansas. We understand that's a border war. But hey, they got beat here by Ole Miss. They could not stop Ole Miss. Ole Miss with over 700 yards of offense. Now, we talked about LSU has moved Harold Perkins from where he played last year. He doesn't seem to be having the same effect in the games this year. I might consider putting him right back where he was. Maybe too late. The season might already be shot for LSU. They still have a tough, Alabama's still on the schedule, so tough deal for LSU. But they're a good football team. We got them 25th. Tennessee regrouped good after that loss to Florida, but that loss to Florida was ugly. They did get by South Carolina this weekend. South Carolina, of course, absolutely destroyed Tennessee last year. Clemson, we talked about them, big win at Syracuse. They're looking like they're not happy with the way things have gone so far this year, and I believe they're going to be a real problem for everybody on the rest of the way. UCLA out there in the Pac-12, we do like them. They're coming in at 22nd. Utah, they fell at Oregon State. We kind of expected that. Utah is without their starting quarterback, Cam Rising. And I just don't think they're the same football team without him. They're very tough, and they played very well, but they did lose to Oregon State, and we kind of suspected that. Missouri is 20th. Missouri's 5-0. They've got the big victory on the big kick that took out Kansas State. Missouri is in a position to continue to win, to really look good. Now, they got LSU this weekend. That's going to be a dogfight. LSU cannot lose again, and it's a real opportunity for Missouri. So I believe that's a noon kickoff. That's going to be a lot of fun. Want to keep your eye out for that one. Missouri is 20th. Kentucky with their big win over Florida. The transfer from Vanderbilt, Ray Davis, he ran for a gazillion yards against the Gators. Duke fell at home hosting Notre Dame. Their quarterback, Riley Leonard, what an outstanding young man. This gentleman got hurt late in the ball game. He's going to be out for a couple of weeks. That's concerning for Duke. But they played Notre Dame very tough. Duke is a good football team, a good physical football team. Make no mistake about it. They're not going anywhere, but they did suffer that loss to the Fighting Irish. And then here we got Oregon State at 17. They did defeat Utah, as we discussed. We think Oregon State is a very good football team. In fact, we had them ranked in the top 15 to begin the season. We think Oregon State's good. Now here's Ole Miss at 16. Now they had a chance against Alabama. They bungled that chance, but boy, they came out and just hit LSU. How they ran all over the place, passed all over the place. They just ran up and down the field against LSU. It was just a sight to behold. I don't know where that offense was last week, but boy, Ole Miss showed you what's possible this week. They're 16th. North Carolina, they were idle. They remain 15th. The excellent quarterback Drake May, they can make some things happen. Miami, 14th. We told you we've been impressed with the Hurricanes so far this year. They were off. They've got the meat of their schedule coming up. They got Georgia Tech this week. Georgia Tech usually plays Miami well, but Georgia Tech was upset by Bowling Green this past week, so I don't know what to say about the Jackets. Washington State, with their big victory a couple weeks back over Oregon State, is 13th and in a great position. Washington State, their coach, I believe, is starting to be looked at or talked about for potential jobs. One of them might be Michigan State. Keep your eye on that. Oklahoma is 12th. I don't believe I have to tell you, the Red River rivalry from the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, Texas. This Saturday, ABC, noon. Oklahoma, Texas, going to tell us everything we need to know. We think the Sooners are better this year than they were last year. We'll say that. Alabama's 11th. The whole season remains in front of Alabama. They beat up on Mississippi State, who is having a bad year. Mississippi State almost made our disappointing teams because Mississippi State's been winning 8 or 9 games for several years in a row. Of course, that was under Mike Leach. But they have a good football team. They got a good quarterback, but they got killed by LSU. They're just not playing well, Mississippi State. But, yeah, Alabama's 11th. The season's in front of them. Texas A&M this weekend. They can't lose that ball game. Notre Dame is 10th. Big win at Duke. We just talked about. They almost had Ohio State beat. Should have probably beat Ohio State, but they didn't. But Notre Dame, here they are. And their schedule's a mess the rest of the way. They're going to earn it if they get back up there. Southern Cal is 9th. We dropped them a little bit. They let it go against Colorado. Almost lost the game. 48-41. But Southern Cal offensively is as lethal as they get. Defensively, they got all kinds of problems. Penn State, they were struggling at Northwestern. It was a noon kickoff. I think everybody who was there, maybe 3,300 people, they were all asleep. I don't even know what was going on over there, but Penn State rallied after the half and disposed of Northwestern. Oregon, now they're looking good out there in the Pac-12. Oregon, really are. That big win over Colorado, they kept the gas going, unlike USC. Oregon, 5-0. Bo Nix playing really well. They're 7th. Watch the Quack Attack. Ohio State is 6th. Ran off that big win over Notre Dame. They've got Maryland this week. Watch out, Maryland. But we'll see. You would expect Ohio State to go ahead and handle that. We'll be watching. Texas, as we mentioned, we have them at 5th. Oklahoma, Saturday at noon. Dallas, Texas, the Cotton Bowl, the Texas State Fair. We're watching that. Florida State was off this past weekend. The Seminoles are 4-0. 2 wins over LSU and Clemson that are big. They've played some sketch around that, though, so we've got to see what they do. They've got Virginia Tech coming up this weekend. They'll win that ball game. Washington. Tough ball game for Washington, who's been laying waste with everybody, but they went out to Arizona. Arizona's better. Don't discount that. Jed Fish got it. They're looking good, Arizona. They can't handle Washington, but they're looking good. Washington got out of there, but it was a tight ball game. We think Washington's really good, especially on offense. But, yeah, that was a tight game, but you have those. So how can Washington respond moving forward in the Pac-12? Got to watch it. Michigan bombed Nebraska. They could have named their score. J.J. McCarthy, fantastic, throwing, directing the run, directing the offense. Heck, he even kissed his girlfriend on the sideline during the game. At Nebraska. Good grief. Speaking of Nebraska, Matt Rule, he's at a crossroads here. This hasn't gone very well so far. And now they got a new season. The next couple of games, next 4, 5, 6 games they play, it's all a coin flip. Just get in the phone booth and beat somebody up, Nebraska, if you want to, But Matt Rule, it's time to get going. They've got a bunch of injuries. I mean, I think they got 7 starters that are out, and they weren't that deep to start with. But yeah, we're watching Matt Rule. That hasn't been good. But back to Michigan. Michigan looks very good. The lines of scrimmage are just something to behold. They've got the great running backs. McCarthy's outstanding. Harbaugh got Michigan playing well. Don't sleep on the Wolverines. And number 1 is Georgia. They continue to play close games. The oldest rivalry in the South is Georgia-Auburn. Georgia was at Auburn, and it took 4 quarters for them to get rid of Auburn. Actually, Brock Bowers. If it hadn't been for him, I don't know if they would have. But Bowers showed you why he's an All-America player with a 45-yard touchdown catch and run. Georgia got out of there. That's all Georgia has to keep on doing is getting out of there. They're the 2-time defending national champions. They've got all the talent in the world. They just got to keep their head on. Their schedule is not very tough. So they're really not going to be challenged, doesn't look like it, until they get to the SEC title game. So expect Georgia to be undefeated and roll up into that show. We don't even know who's going to show up on the West. Could be Alabama, could be Texas A&M. It still could be LSU. I don't know. We'll have to see how it plays out. But Georgia remains our number 1 team in the nation this week. All right, folks, that's our top 25 for Week 5 in NCAA college football. Drop us some comments and let us know, do we got somebody ranked in the wrong spot, or we forgot to rank somebody, or you think somebody's a lot better than we do or a lot worse than we do? Let us know. We'd love to hear your comments and see what you're thinking on the subject. Again, do follow us over there on Facebook at the Color and Pageantry. We'd like to get that going. We don't have many followers, but we have fun over there. So check us out. We got to look at the games this week. I mean, the big one is in the Cotton Bowl. We just talked about it. We're going to keep talking about it. That's a big one. Texas, Oklahoma. It's going to tell us a heck of a lot. And then Alabama, A&M. That's going to be a good one too. To see what's going on there in the SEC West. And we got our eye on Maryland. They're at Ohio State. Do they have anything for the Buckeyes? All right, folks, that's it. Appreciate you watching. We'll watch these games again. Somebody is going to get beat. I can promise you that. Somebody is going to get beat. And it's just going to be another exciting weekend. 14, 15 hours of college football from game day till the conclusion of Pac-12 after dark. Y'all enjoy the weekend. We'll see you next week.